Today we're going to replace our halyard. We bought the exact same halyard that came with the boat from Catalina direct in this case, and what I'm going to do is pull it through the mast and all the way out using the old line. So what I did earlier was sew it together, and I used some regular waxed thread and my handheld thimble or hand mounted thimble. Anyway, so we'll drag it through and see how it goes. We need to replace this eye loop right here, but I can't put the eye loop in yet because we got to feed it all the way through, and an eye loop won't go through the mast. So let's see if we can pull it through. Again. Looks like we're already up into the mast. There's the new line. Sweet! I'm going to pull it all the way out because I need some area to work with. Okay. Earlier we sewed the two ends together so it would feed through, and it fed through perfect. So that worked. Anyway, so I'm just going to cut this off. And the old line, I need to put it for the clip, the shackle that goes onto the top part. So before I do anything, I need to tape this so it doesn't fray. Alright. So what I did is I practiced earlier on an old line, so I make sure I got the right size fids and everything. This one's a little bit smaller than the eye loop that I want to make this time. Okay, this is the right size fid for this line. It's a 5/16 for a 5/16 halyard line. Anyway, what I'm going to do is one fid length from the end, and then a second fid length for the size of the eye loop you want, which in this case is this size. There's my second one. From that point, five fid lengths up the line so I can tie a knot, and that knot will help for later. There's 2, 3, 4, 5. This will help keep the line stable, and what it says is that you want this part to bite, so this part will slip. So the end I'm going to be working on will bite. Okay. So just to backtrack a little bit, I made one mark, one fid length from the end, a second mark at the length of the eye loop that I want. Where did it go? Here it is. So that the loop will be the same size, and then 5 fid lengths up I tied a knot because that'll help us to pull the line through. Then I opened the line up. I'm going to pull the core out. Well, I reached in and wedged it out. I can't put it back in now, but anyway, reached in and just kind of opened the line up to pull it out. So I'm pulling this core out a little bit to the end, so I now have 2 pieces. So what's going to happen is one's going to double back inside. But before I let the end unravel, tape it off a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is, right now these are the same length, but it says to milk it up, pull the core out up to our knot, and then stretch it back down, and do this twice. What this does is it allows the core to be a little longer depending on the rope. This one may or may not do it. To stretch it completely out, yeah, it's a little bit longer. So after I milk it down, I pull both of them taut. So make my first mark right at the point where it comes out of the where the core comes out of the cover. Pull this back. I'm gonna make a couple more marks up here. First is going to be at what's called a half fid mark, which on the fid there are 2 lines here. This is about equal to 1/3 of it, maybe a little bit more the length of the fid. So I'll make my first mark there. Second mark, I should say. And I'm actually going to put 2 lines there to show that's going to be one of the entry or exit points. And then the next one, which is my third mark, which is a fid length and a half. There's 1 and about a half of a fid length from there. Actually, that first fid length was called a short fid length. So about right here is my third mark. So we have our 3 marks on the core. Okay, so now we need to basically take the cover, put it inside the core, and then the core back inside the cover. But to do that, we need to thin out or taper the end of the cover. So starting at the first mark we made, the 1 fid length mark, going about 1 inch, what we're going to do is we're going to pull some of these threads out. It's double thread here. So we'll just randomly pick one and we'll pull it out. We're going to cut it off so this end will be less of the rope. So as you can see, it comes out fairly easy. Tape may be holding it. So I'm going to do that about another inch down.
You said you're doing about 5 of them?
Yeah, I've gotten 2 so far. Just working my way from my first mark, my first fid mark. I've got 2 of them out so far. I'm going to cut them off in a minute. So as you can see, I pulled 5 separate strands out, and obviously they're different lengths because they're from the end. So milk it down a little bit, so that what's back up in here stays straight and taut, and then I'm going to cut them off. I use scissors to cut them as opposed to a knife.
Are you doing this within that because it's going back inside the core?
This is, yes. This core is going to go inside, I'm sorry, this is the cover. It's going to go inside the core and then back inside the cover.
So it's making room.
It's making room
to fit inside.
But it's still strong. I mean, it's still got rope strength. Okay. But the load's not going to be on this end of the rope. This is just going to supply friction. So I'm just going to cut these off. And on this extremely hot South Florida day, sweat pouring everywhere, we'll start at the second mark that we made on the core earlier, the what's it called, a short fid mark. And then we're going to go in there and we're going to come out at the third mark, which is a fid and a half length. So this core separates very easily. So I'm going to take the fid, which in this case is a 5/16. I'm just going to feed it through. Draw this back. Make sure you don't snag or come out the sides at all. And I'm going to come out at that point there. So just make sure it stays centered. It's feeding. I can feel it very nice. I'm not going to let it come off the back end of the fid. Like I said, I'm marked 3 here for the third, but I'm going to come out of the center of the third one. So there's my, feels like it's fairly straight. I'm going to take the cover that I just feathered, made it a little smaller, feed it into the fid. I need to take my pusher tool. It's just so I've got tape on it because I was experimenting earlier. So we're still out. So put it right behind the tape here. Make sure it feeds in. And just basically feed it through. However, this core is so loose, I think I can just pull it through without that. So I pull this through, and it came out. So I've got a clean pull all the way through. Take the fid off, tie a knot in the cover, just for now, that we'll take out later, just to keep it from feeding back through. I need it out here at the moment. Okay. So now we got the first of two. We're halfway through the process. We've got the core going, the cover going through the core. And then the next step, we'll take the core and run it back through the cover. And then it'll end up all down in here. This right now is all bunched up, but it will eventually stretch out and become the new core. So now I've got the cover in the core. I need to take the core and put it back into the cover. So the very first mark we made on the cover, remember the first one we made, and then the second one was where the eye loop ended. So I'm going to put it in, I'm going to keep it in line with the hole that I have here, because this core is going to feed through there. So I'm going to feed it through. I'll feed through the cover. It should be easy here, but keep in mind there's a core in there. It's going to get a little tougher. And earlier I had to improvise and use a different tool. I might be able to do it on this one, I may not. So anyway, we go about a short fid length, which is this far, past the split where the Y is, where they join. So I'm going to go ahead and put that here, and I'm going to put a mark there, and that's where I'm going to exit, somewhere in this neighborhood. Okay. So again, start at my original first mark on the cover, go past the Y, try not to pick up anything on the core. Alright, okay, so it's on the fid. So now we take the core, put it in the fid. Okay, so now that I've got it ready to go, I'm going to feed this core back into the cover. Okay, so it may take a little finesse.
Ready.
Alright, so I've got the fid pulled all the way through, and I've got the core pulled through. So now I just want to make sure that it comes out clean, which it did. Comes all the way out, and I go ahead and pull it tight. And if you notice what we have here, it's what's called a crossover. This crossover is where the core meets the cover.
I was wondering how that part got back in there.
Now this core is going to eventually feed back into here and become a new core. But there's a cover inside of the core,
right,
which will be inside the cover. That's why on these eye loops it's always thicker right here, so we'll have to thin that out a little bit. So now that we've got that in there, okay, I'll feather it out. I do have a little bit of a snag there. Hopefully that'll get worked out when I feather it. Okay, so I've got that. So next step.
All right.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to make sure that I'm going to take this junction, and this is where I want to start feathering it down. It's called milking it. Milk it down. Okay, but I want to hold both pieces so that they don't move too much.
Okay.
So I'm pulling it tight so that it's jammed up with the crossover. Okay, so you can see that the cover is all bunched up there. So now that it's nice and tight right here, that's where I'm going to hold it so that I squeeze both the core and the cover, and I'm going to milk it back. Okay, so milking it. So get all this out. It's still tight right here, jammed up nicely. And then I'm going to cut this off here. And it's just going to blend, fall back into, and become inside the core. Okay. But before I do that, I want to mark it right here. That's where I'm going to cut it. Pull it out a little bit. Cut it, and then I'm going to feather it. It'll disappear inside the line, becoming a new core. So now what I'm going to do is I fan it out a little bit, and I want to feather it at a 45-degree cut. All right. So attempt number 3, we got some
real pair of scissors.
Fiskars. We'll see if they actually work. So again, fan it out. Cut about a 45, and these aren't really working that well either. But so we got the 45 cut off. I do want to nip a little bit off the end here. There. Okay, so I got a 45. So again, hold it right at the crossover and milk it back down to where the core will disappear back inside of the cover.
Do you have any idea how much this would cost to have somebody do this for you?
I really have no idea. It takes about 20 minutes. Probably 10 minutes if you know what you're doing. So now we pretty much got everything ready to go. At this point, we still have our core here. I'm sorry, this is the cover, which is inside the core. So again, we're going to take this off, take the knot out. We're going to pull it back through the core. So, and the same thing, I'm going to feather that or 45-degree cut that so there's not so much mass at the end of the. Alright, so now we're on our last step. I feathered this earlier, and I 45-degree cut that, and now I want to pull that back through here. So what we're doing here is this disappear into the core. So from here, which is our crossover, feed the cover back into the core, milking it down. So the cover disappears inside the core, and you can start to see our loop form. And then the next thing we want to do is pull the core back, this new core, into the cover, and you'll see it's actually pretty easy. So now that we've got the loop done, we need to milk it properly and get the cover to come back over the core. To do that, there's a trick to it, in that you instead of milking it first, you want to pull it, and it kind of milks itself to a point where you can see it's starting to stretch. And it'll get to a point where it'll, yeah, I'll end up overboard. So we got it stretched about as far as we can go. Now keep it taut and then milk it the rest of the way. You can see it move a little bit. Ah, burning. You probably need some gloves. Gloves. Come on. We've got a little knot right there. He said keep it tight. I do need to get some gloves.
So you got it.
So I didn't think ahead, and it's a learning note. Don't. Hopefully I don't have to cut my mallet off.
Put it on the skinny part of the handle.
Don't put it on the skinny part of the handle.
And there's Joe. Hi, Joe.
It was good on paper. Got it.
Can you use a piece of pipe or something? Like
Yeah, I need something skinnier. And
Or
how about a
something
screwdriver?
Something that's not tapered. Exactly.
Something, yeah, something that's not tapered. And look at that!
Good. So is it done?
It looks like it's done. It's done. And there's different ways to get this to pop in there. They say as long as you keep it taut, you can snap it while it's taut, and a lot of times that doesn't. That's actually why I brought the hammer, is you can lay it down, tap on it, it breaks the fibers apart a little bit, so that allows them a skosh more room. What's that? Levi's jeans. Skosh more room. We have our finished product here. So the shackle got a nice two-stage. You can feel it right here. That's where it came in. So there's a single core, double core there, and then probably a triple part right here. So a core and a cover, and then the cover.
Now we have a new halyard.
Now we have a new halyard.
Yay. I can relax a bit now. Because the old one is starting to look a little worn in places. And I'd rather not have the halyard break on us while we're out sailing.